Okay, so we are going to talk a little bit about critical thinking and a process called AIM. And what I want you guys to do with this is I want you to actually use AIM when you guys are following this case study, which is the assignment that you're going to do for this. So let's first talk about critical thinking. One thing with critical thinking is everybody thinks it's such an easy concept, and it's really, really not. A lot of people struggle with this, and there is some systematic approaches to critical thinking. When we use critical thinking, it's a process of evaluating and examining evidence. We look at assumptions and arguments and opinions to make an informed and justified decision. So we really we just don't make a rash decision. We think through the process and as to why. And in healthcare, critical thinking is super critical because we make a lot of quick decisions, but we also need to make sure they're the right decision. So it is essential when there's a complex problem that without a clear solution that we think about all the different layers that involves in that are coming into play with that. So problem solving, decision making, and honestly creativity and individuals' creativity are components of this process. Creativity is different ways of solving a problem. Being able to make a decision. And then there will be a direct outcome. And so there's steps in critical thinking. We first want to gather information. We then want to understand it. So once we gather the information, we understand it. And then we want to apply what we understand, analyze, and then evaluate to see how we have moved forward through critical thinking. So it's one of those skills that is not, some people have it naturally and some people don't. It is definitely a skill that can be learned, and it's something that you guys are going to be using in healthcare. We'll use it through, you may have used it through your medical assisting class or nursing classes or phlebotomy class, or we'll utilize these in all of our clinical courses that we do here at Collin. So let's take a look at a technique called AIM, which can kind of help you with your critical thinking steps. So it kind of gives you like a process, and I use AIM all the time. I use it in the workplace. I've used it in my own personal life. AIM stands for, it's an acronym, and what it stands for is it stands for align, align, inquire, and make a plan. So that's what AIM stands for. So it can be used along with critical thinking. It is kind of a step process where we analyze and gather information. It's used in communication, in interaction with others. And then it's used in managing conflict. So if you ever deal with conflict in a workplace, in your own personal life, at your own personal job that you're currently at, AIM is a really good tool to use to help you process through those situations. So let's take a look at these 3 steps. Let's first talk about align. Align is discuss the issue, gather information, identify the challenge, work with others, and have conversation around the issue. And goal is to determine the problem and solidify the challenge. So when I look at align, first of all, we want to gather and discuss the issue. So sometimes it can be one or the other. So like if it's a managing conflict, you may first want to go with an open mind and discuss the issue so that you can align it. Now, a lot of times when you're managing conflict, you can get a lot of emotion involved. You want to make sure you do this when you're not emotionally charged or emotionally invested. So you kind of want to go to the individual that you might be having a conflict, or maybe a colleague, and maybe discuss, this is my issue. How do you see it? So to kind of discuss the issue with either another colleague, a supervisor, or even the individual that you're struggling with. And gather information like, why do you think this occurred? How can I handle this situation? This is my scenario. Let's say, for example, you have, you're working with a colleague and they're not doing as much work as you, and it's really frustrating to you. So maybe there's a reason why. Maybe you can look at it in a different way. And the challenge, obviously, is what is going on. So The goal is to determine the problem and solidify the challenge. That's what you're trying to figure out. Like, what is the real problem? But the key is you got to keep emotion out of it, because when you bring emotion into it, then you're kind of you're going to struggle. It's going to be a struggle bus. So you want to make sure that you keep emotion out of it and you just look at facts. Okay? That's the first thing you want to do, and that's your line. Then you want to inquire, which is to gain the perspective of others or share your own. So this is often when you go to the individual and you can say, okay, this is what I'm seeing. I feel like, you come in to work and I'm doing a lot of work and it doesn't seem like you're really getting engaged in work. Am I perceiving this incorrectly, or is there something going on, or what's happening? And share your ideas, listen to their reasoning. The one key here when you inquire is you need to eliminate assumptions and perceptions that are not fact-based. You can't assume, well, that person's just lazy, or that person doesn't want to help out, or whatever. Maybe there's an actual reason. So that's where you want to start. And maybe that individual didn't realize he was doing or she was doing that. So, you want to first start there. And then once you've gathered that information and you've heard the perspective of the other person and you've shared your perspective, you've eliminated the assumptions and perceptions, you can analyze the challenge. Usually the challenge is much clearer, and all of a sudden this big challenge can become very small and not be such a challenge. So that's kind of how you want to do your inquire. And then the last is to make a plan. So you want to make a plan is the action that you're going to take or the other individual is going to take to resolve the issue. After you have implemented it, after implementation, evaluate the results. See if it's working. See if things are better. Make sure that does it need to be revisited? Is it truly resolved, or is there still an issue? So it's a very simple tool called AIM, but it is very effective. So what I want you to do is there is a case study in here, and I want you to read that case study, and I want you to use this technique to see if you can process through that case study and respond to it. Okay?